speedrunners exist in every video game, and after watching some of the best speedrunners in Palworld right now, I thought to myself, what if I tried it? And well, this happened.
Not a sound. Thought he was living life till he met the ground. AK-47, that's my gun walk.
Although there aren't any official speedruns in the English speedrunning community, the Chinese community actually had a world record of 3 hours and 47 minutes to defeat Astralym. The player actually utilized the multiplayer settings that is commonly used in speedrunning Palworld. The reason this is the meta start for every speedrun is that it bumps you up to level 12 immediately, where the actual speedrun begins. Since I didn't adjust my settings at all, this option was not accessible to me. And to take it even further, I was not going to utilize any exploits or glitches which could make the run easier in any shape or form. I was going full boiled chicken and rice with no seasoning for this run. The unedited run will be pinned in the comments down below if you are interested in watching the whole thing. The start of the run, I first interacted with the islander and picked up my first chest, giving me 2 Pal Spheres and level 2. Using the back bonus, I captured my first lamb ball and continued to pick up items since wood and stone were needed for all of the early craftings, and captured a Cativa for handiwork and mining level 1. I then proceeded to capture 2 more lamb balls and a goo moss before placing down my early structures and completing the early missions, giving me level 4. These allowed me to leave my pals behind to finish crafting some cloth and made my way to the small settlement via the beach route, accepting the Farmer's Girls mission and capturing a papyri, 2 celeries and a bunch of jode hogs along the way. This path allowed me to complete the struggling farmer's mission, pass the food to the security guard, and using the gold from the missions and chests I collected along the way to purchase a bunch of wool, leather, flame organs, and as many Pal Spheres I could shove up my. I teleported back to the base and buffed the crafts for my Pal Gear workbench and cloth armor before heading to the Golden Hills. Along the way, I did my best impression of the TikTok sphere launcher, shooting my spheres at any pals I came across. Eventually, capturing the Incineram and Lispunk, I relogged into the server, refreshing the spawn, allowing me to capture a second copy of both pals. I then continued to make spheres rain on my way to the Breach of the Twin Night waypoint, crucially capturing Rush Ores and one of the main 5 pals of the run, Hangyu, for its gliding partner skill. I then returned to my base and buffered my Rush Ore saddle and common shield crafts while making my way to the Fort Ruin waypoint, once again chucking spheres at any pals in the vicinity, and also turned in the special dish mission, giving me level 10. At this point, since I had ran out of regular spheres, I made my way directly to the Chillet Alpha boss, using my freshly caught Incineram to incinerate the boss, giving me level 11. I then returned to my base to craft 2 primitive furnaces to start smelting iron ingots before reorganizing my party and made my way to the sealed realm of the Frigid Fox, capturing the Foxical Alpha boss and giving me level 12, unlocking the grappling gun. I then returned to my base and prioritized crafting the high quality workbench and the grappling hook, and since this left me with 1 ingot left over, I used the remaining ingot to turn it into 5 nails, but more on this later on. With my newly crafted grappling gun, I could finally begin the speedrun and began making my way towards Sundream, where endgame spheres like the Soul Sphere and Ancient Sphere can be found. If you are familiar with my previous videos, you would know that this has been undisputably the fastest way to progress in Palworld, as endgame locations has always provided the best possible spheres for the game, allowing you to capture anything, just like the subscribe button down below. Since it takes some time for me to travel to Sundream, there's more than enough time for you to scroll down and click the subscribe button. Now that you guys are subscribed, using the Hangyu and grappling gun combo, I traveled to the volcanic region and unlocked Fisherman's Waypoint and headed towards Fabric Island, unlocking the Scorched Ashland waypoint. I then collected 10 Night Star Sand and turned it into this NPC for a mission, giving me level 17. I will also be prioritizing collecting Power Souls, as this will allow me to give a 30% attack boost to 2 pals of my choosing. A samurai was desperate for a meal as he completely cooked my rush ore, causing me to take a detour and head towards the Emberstone Plateau waypoint to teleport back to my base and place another rush ore and accelerate into my party, since its partner skill prevents me from taking any fall damage. Eventually, I made my way to the Azure Cliff waypoint and grappled towards one of the 2 fabric sea bases, obtaining a level crystal and used Liz Punk's partner ability to turn invisible and rescue the most important and precious pal in the run, Juliet, from its cage, before using the emergency respawn button to head back to the Azure Cliff waypoint. I then made my way to the top of Fabric Tower to use the Skywarp altar to head to Sundream. Upon arriving in Sundream, I collected some loot spawns in the area to try and obtain as many soul spheres and ancient spheres as possible, and utilize this specific altar to head to the Jet Dragon spawn location, where I captured the legendary Celestial Dragon on day 2, 45 minutes into the run. During this time, I made a crucial mistake. I had accidentally dropped the medium Power Souls I had collected thus far, and accidentally lost my Liz Punk in the Azure Covenant base, trying to unlock Sundream's tower boss. In order to salvage the time I lost in this section, I decided to click the emergency respawn button and teleported back to the Bridge of the Twin Knights waypoint to make my way... Okay, let's try this again. So I teleported back to the Bridge of the Twin Knight waypoint to make my way... What kind of speedrun is this? I then made my way to the deserted Islet to obtain the mission for Pantherless, and made my way to the Astral Mountains. Along the way, I unlocked the pristine Snowfield waypoint and the Gardens Beneath the Snowy Mountain waypoint. I then captured my 4th main pal of the run, the legendary Steed of Ice, before heading higher into the Astral Mountains, collecting the Tidewind Echo Bone at the corpse of an adult Pantherless and one of the 4 Relaxaurus effigies, which will be much more important later on. I then headed back to Fabric Island and travelled along the coast to the west, defeating Gelroy's "All jellyfish deserve to die" and unlocking the curved Red Rock waypoint before teleporting back to the Island Hopper waypoint. It was time for my journey to the north, as I collected the Silent Echo Bone from another gigantic corpse, unlocking the PIDF Tower Boss waypoint, and collecting the nearby Relaxaurus effigy. Eventually captured the 5th and final member of my party, the Holy Knight of Legend, Necromus. At this point, I realized that I had accidentally dropped my purple Power Souls somewhere along the way, and headed back to my base to craft the Crusher. I turned the excess large Power Souls I had to produce more medium Power Souls to make up for the ones that I had lost. I then purchased 2 Starfruits 1 from the Dogcoin merchant at the Desolate Church, and was going to turn in my effigies, before realizing that I had not collected all of them. So to rectify this mistake, I headed to the volcanic region and collected the Relaxaurus effigy and the Sea Foam Echo Bone, before teleporting back to the pristine Snowfield waypoint to make my way to the Sakurajima Tower Boss waypoint, collecting the nearby Relaxaurus effigy. Do you remember the nails I crafted earlier in the run? You see, I had buffered the craftings for the wooden board using those nails and the materials gathered by the papyri I placed into the base back at the beginning of the run. This allowed me to craft the cooking pot, while I made my way to the Desolate Church to turn in my Relaxaurus effigies, giving me a 50% bonus to my EXP gained. Also used the Power Souls I have collected up to this point to raise the attacks of my 2 strongest pals in my party, the legendary Steed of Ice and the legendary Celestial Jellyfish, Juliet. Then made my way to the arena to begin my career as the very best, like no one ever was. After defeating the Bronze, Silver, Gold and Platinum Tamers in the arena, I had defeated enough POW Tamers to obtain enough battle tickets to purchase the Windblast Fruit. Additionally, I was able to use the Gelroy Flesh, that I obtained earlier from defeating Gelroys to obtain Gelroy jellies, which provided a boost to my EXP gain by another 10%. And for those that are unfamiliar with what is going to happen, this is currently the updated fastest method to level 80, replacing the Sakurajima base strategy. Credit to Ibuki and Alucard for discovering this. Using the Wind Blast fruit, I taught the strongest pal in my party, Jelliet, the Wind Burst attack. And if you want to know why my cute little jellyfish is the strongest pal in my party, you can refer to this video I made previously explaining the mechanics of combat in Palworld, but bottom line is, my celestial jellyfish is undisputably my strongest pal at this moment, as its level is currently above level 75, which meant that it does not suffer from any level damage penalties, making it possible for me to defeat the higher level mobs in the Fabric Sea base. This is similar to my previous strategy of fishing out a level 60 pal from the oil rig and using it to capture level 60 pals. Thus, it was time to begin my honorable battles against the mobs of the Fabric Sea base. By planting a bomb, also known as my Jelliet with Windburst, I could destroy everything in the base, using the Gelroy jelly to give me an EXP boost and a Mamoras curry or a Mozzarella cheeseburger to boost my Jelliet's attack damage. I could earn anywhere from 300,000 EXP to 700,000 EXP, with the amount of EXP gain scaling with my player level as my Jelliet stats start to increase, allowing it to defeat even more mobs. Depending on how powerful your PC is, you can reach level 80 within 20 minutes, or in my case, with my potato of a computer, I achieved level 80 after doing this for 40 minutes straight. Yes, I literally stood there logging in and out of my server just to do this. It was time for the next stage of the run as I returned to the arena, sending 3 legendary pals giving me the Apocalypse skill fruit, and challenged Panthalus using the quest item I had crafted previously and accidentally failed on my first attempt. I started the battle by gliding towards the floating whale and watched my Necromus lay waste to Panthalus' health bar. If this doesn't convince you that Apocalypse is broken, then I don't know what will. And you might think that I only had one pal with Apocalypse, since I had obtained the Apocalypse skill fruit from the arena earlier. Necromus naturally learns Apocalypse as one of its base skills, so I actually had 2 Apocalypse pals, with the best Dark type pal in the game, Jetragon, and as you can see, he is clearly better than Necromer. Oh. I also had Frostallion, which is surprisingly strong with absolute frost as well, but it's kind of janky and hard to use against Panthalus, since Frostallion somehow doesn't float on water. If you wanted to find out the strategy behind defeating Panthalus, you can refer to this video right here. But since this is a speedrun, my battle will not be quite as fair as that video might suggest. Eventually, I successfully defeated and captured Panthalus at 2 hours and 23 minutes. After obtaining the magnificent Panthalus, I began making my way to the World Tree. This brings me to the most difficult part of the run. To even meet Zenara and Astralym, you first need to collect all 8 spheres from the tower bosses before getting access to Victory Road, the World Tree, where we have to defeat the 4 elite bosses to even get a glimpse of the 2 most beautiful girls in Papagos Island. Talking about Zenara and Astralym, don't be a pervert. I immediately entered the Dark Laboratory, where you would have to go through 4 different sets of battles to gain the right to challenge the strongest pal in the game. Going into my 3rd attempt, I entered the fights with the mindset of nuking one of the 2 pals as soon as they spawned in, which made Frostallion and Necromus extremely crucial, as they not only had one of the highest attack stats in the game, but also the strongest abilities for dealing burst damage. We ensured that Necromus only had twin spears, and Frostallion only had Crystal Wing with 700 attack value to target Orzhov. Since Frostallion's and Necromus' highest damage abilities caused them to dash forward, I made sure to always align the 2 bosses in a straight line, ensuring that my pals would always land their abilities on both of them. Unfortunately, this time, my Frostallion was actually targeting Phalaris instead of Orzhov. This allowed Orzhov to survive with a fraction of its life bar remaining, and while trying hard to survive this battle myself, I swapped out Frostallion Frostallion for Jetragon and Hang You while waiting for Frostallion's cooldown before finishing off the Orzhok. I then swapped out to the strongest Pel in my party to finish off the Phalaris. For the next pair of bosses, I summoned Necromus once again as we watch it nuke Selene and Shadowbeak's health bars, but surprisingly, Selene took significant amounts of damage, allowing my Jetragon to finish it off with a Meteor Rain. After taking down the highly modified Selene, it was just a matter of time before Shadowbeak was taken down as well. Against the final battle, I once again summoned Frostallion, trying to finish off Xiaolong as soon as the battle began. However, since Xiaolong and Bastigor were not only deadly but had extremely fast movements, it was difficult for me to survive while trying to finish off the low HP Xiaolong. After narrowly dodging the unrelenting onslaught from Xiaolong and Bastigor, I finally managed to defeat the Jake Long wannabe, and the remaining battle was a breeze as I slowly whittled down Bastigor's health bar, eventually giving me the win and defeating the tower boss Gauntlet at 2 hours and 42 minutes. I then headed to the Shine Spore route, defeating the Sylvan's alpha boss and teleported to the desert, defeating Marcus and his Phalaris. I had also defeated Saya and her Selene earlier in the run in between my attempts at the tower boss Gauntlet. I then teleported to the Astral Mountains using my Primal Kyogre to fly up into the sky to reach the tower, defeating Victor and his Shadowbeak, and repeated the same thing to defeat Axel and his Orzhok in the Volcano region. I was down one step away from completing the run and headed back to the World Tree to defeat Dandilord at the Rod Mist route waypoint. I then headed towards the World Tree to defeat Zenara and her Astralym, and I didn't complete all of the tower bosses yet. So I teleported back to Sundream and finally defeated Ori at her Jake Long, eventually defeating her in 3 hours and 8 minutes. I then headed towards the World Tree to defeat Zenara and her Astralym, and I didn't complete all of the tower bosses yet. So I teleported back to Fabric and defeated Bjorn and his Bastigor, eventually defeating him in 3 hours and 13 minutes. I then headed back to the World Tree, this time surely ready to defeat Zenara and her Astralym. Oh, you gotta be kidding me! Then teleported back to the Bridge of the Twin Knight waypoint and defeated Lily and her Lylene, 3 hours and 16 minutes. Finally, after all this time, this will be the ultimate ending to the run. So without further ado, this is the actual ending fight against Astralym. My strategy going into this fight is to press the like and subscribe button so that you can gain access to the different strategies I posted on my channel to defeat the different bosses. You can also click the link in the description of my channel description to join my Discord, where I had actually mentioned a while ago that the best strategy for Astralym was actually going to be using large AoE attacks like Apocalypse or Absolute Frost. And well, knowing this, the battle was honestly not very hard. So I will just quickly explain Astralym's mechanic for everyone to know. Astralym is similar to Hatalis, where it has a phase 1. In phase 1, once Astralym hits around 300,000 HP, it activates its unique mechanic similar to Hatalis' barrier phase. The difference, however, is that you simply have to attack some of its wings. This causes parts of the arena to be safe from its attack. Astralym achieves 252,000 HP, it enters phase 2 with new abilities and upgrades its previous abilities such as the barrier phase, replacing the explosion with mini meteor rain like attacks that kill you instantly if you were dumb enough to be naked just like me. And while I would like to leave the final details of the battles for a future video, I will leave you with just one tip that makes any attack trivial in the game. By aiming down with right click and learning to dodge at the perfect timing, you effectively gain invincibility against any attack. This is me dodging Panther's Tidal Charge ability and even surviving Astralym's final phase in my previous video using just my dodging ability. Eventually, the final phase of Astralym is just simply a damage check once Astralym achieves 10% of its max HP. And that's it. I have officially defeated Palworld on day 5, 3 hours, 21 minutes and 42 seconds into the game. Honestly speaking, I was hoping to complete the game below 3 hours, and with the time lost due to several mistakes I actually made in the run and failing to complete certain tasks at the appropriate timings, I would have certainly saved enough time for me to click the like and subscribe button, but since I had already overcome the current world record of 3 hours and 42 minutes. Despite my weaker early game, I decided to end it right here. Hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one.